Now, Canada is looking to boost trade with its other North American trading partner, Mexico, as both countries try to work out a trade agreement with a volatile United States under President Donald Trump. CTV's National's Colton Praill joins us now. Now, two Canadian ministers are in Mexico today talking trade. What are they hoping to achieve with this trip?
Yeah, Nicole, a very senior trip. We have the Finance Minister, François-Philippe Champagne, and the Foreign Affairs Minister, Anita Anand, both in Mexico City. They're meeting their counterparts over a two-day trip to Mexico City. But crucially, they're also meeting with Mexican President Claudia Sheinbaum. And this trip is twofold. One, yes, it's about increasing trade. Mexico's our third largest trading partner, but they only accounted for about 1% of exports in 2024. On both sides, there is a feeling that there is a lot of room to grow that relationship. But two, it's also about rebuilding that relationship. If you think back to the end of last year, start of this year, when that Trump tariff threat was very, very new, there was urging from both Danielle Smith and Doug Ford, the Premier of Ontario, to push for a unilateral deal with the United States, a unilateral trade deal with the United States, essentially cutting Mexico out of the existing CUSMA agreement. That didn't go over well with the Mexican government. It did impact relations with in between Canada and Mexico. The fact that that was, essentially allowed to happen under Justin Trudeau and that he didn't firmly quash those talks down. We have seen an effort over the past several months to improve that relationship. Obviously, Mark Carney and Claudia Sheinbaum met at the G7. They had a bilateral meeting there. The two leaders have spoke over the phone. Both have talked about working together, both to deal with the United States and the Trump tariff threat, but also to improve trading relations. And so this meeting is really about, yes, how do we improve trade? How do we work better with what is the third partner in this free trade agreement that we already have and maybe aren't utilizing to the fullest extent? But two, how do you guarantee that there is a better relationship with the Mexican leadership, especially as we get closer to the CUSMA review? We're a year out from 2026, a year out from looking at this free trade deal. And as we've seen Trump do with tariff deals around the world, he is looking to get unilateral deals done. At this point in time, we don't know whether he's thinking of re-upping that trilateral agreement or splitting it off into two different agreements. If you even look at the tariff situation right now, for a long time, Canada and Mexico were facing the same problem. That's no longer the case anymore. Mexico got a 90-day pause. We got 35% tariff. So Mexico's still at that 25% rate, potentially looking at an increase to 35%. So there's lots of opportunity here, not only to build trade, but to strengthen so that Canada has potentially another North American ally when dealing with the more protectionist U.S.
Now, there's some new data on Canadian trade coming out just moments ago. What does it tell us?
Interesting here, both imports and exports up, but crucially that import data is skewed. There was a massive oil module purchase for a project in Newfoundland. Without that data, imports are actually down just over 1.5% or about 1.5%. The really interesting numbers here are trade with the U.S. and trade with the rest of the world. Trade with the U.S. actually up in June. Exports up about 3%. That's pretty noteworthy because that's not been the case for most of this year. It is important to caveat with that being the month-to-month data. If you look year over year, we are still seeing a decrease of about 12.5%. Trade to the rest of the world, that was down. Again, caveats, May was a record month for trade to the rest of the world. So we saw a drop of about 4% in the month of June, but overall, we're still looking at an increase year over year of about 15%. Important to note, that is just a small percent of our trade, though. The majority of it, 3/4, is going to the United States. The bigger questions were around quarterly data. We were expecting to see total exports drop in Q2. They did end up doing so, down just about 13%. The biggest drops, energy, consumer goods, and cars and vehicle parts, but energy dropped almost 20% in Q2. Obviously, that's going to be hard hit in Alberta as well as the rest of the country. That a big impact as we're seeing kind of these sectoral hits and the impacts of tariffs really showing up in places like cars, vehicle parts, and energy rather than across the entire Canadian economy.
Well, thank you so much, Colton, for that update.
Anytime.